principle of trying to reduce spending. One of the concerns I would have is I know that there were a lot of social service programs that were affected. My concern would be ensuring that those costs are not passed down to the state. Oftentimes there's an interplay between federal and state government programs and the funding sources. And so I would want to ensure that we were not just cutting federal funding obligations and then kicking them down to the state, because that doesn't really address the problem. And the reality is there are people who are going to need these sorts of resources, and if we just cut it at the federal level and push it down to the states without providing proper resources, we haven't really solved anything at all.
I would absolutely support it.
Thank you. Next, for Rodney, starting with Rodney, via Twitter, The Lowdown asks, when is it appropriate to increase tax rates? That's a pseudonym or whatever.
Like Habib?
Yeah, like Gorgeous.
When is it okay to raise taxes?
When is it appropriate to increase tax rates?
When is it appropriate to increase tax rates? The marginal tax rates? Never.
Okay.
Well, I certainly don't support raising taxes, but I'm not somebody who wants to make pledges that sort of would constrain my ability to perhaps govern effectively. If, for example, our nation was faced with a natural disaster, or if our military spending and budget required it, I wouldn't want to preclude the ability to raise taxes. But my inclination would always be to look to find ways of reducing spending, because I think that's always preferable to raising taxes. But I'm not somebody who likes to make across-the-board pledges, because I think it sometimes hampers your ability to operate responsibly in the future.
You know, sometimes there's always going to be a crisis. And there's always going to be something that's going to have to get raised. That's what we see right now. And there's always a, oh, but, here's the thing. Here's why we need to raise taxes now. In the future, maybe that concept is going to be good. But right now, absolutely not. We've got to stop raising taxes. We've got to stop picking people apart and make it because you're over here, you get more tax than this person does. It has to be just across the board, an absolute no taxes right now. Go back to reducing the budget, the way we talked about earlier, get the fat out, and that's where you're going to start finding some of your money. But we can't, there's always going to be that what if. And I think that's why people are so incredibly frustrated right now, because you send people to Washington to say, hold the line, and then they come back and say, but they said, what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? And then we go, we set you up there to do the right thing. So right now, we can't make this, and I agree, you can't make a pledge for the rest of your life. But right now, it is an absolute no new taxes.
This past year, Pat Quinn raised our taxes 66%, and we are still $6 billion in debt, state government. So we're taxed enough. I would not vote for a tax increase.
Okay, and I think I lost track. Erica, is it you now up? I think, right? Yeah. Chris Beard of Urbana asks, what will you do to improve the current business climate and help business owners feel comfortable enough to expand?
The first thing that I would want to do is talk to business owners about specific regulations that might impede their ability to operate profitably. I think there's some specific provisions that I would identify, such as the Dodd-Frank bill and some of the Consumer Protection Acts that really harm businesses' opportunities to operate profitably. But I would want to talk to local business owners and say, in your industry, what are the particular provisions that really harm your ability to be economically profitable and hire new employees? Because I wouldn't be cocky enough to think that I would know what would affect each person's industry. So I think that would be the first starting point so that we could start to stem the overregulation. But I would also want to focus on fiscal policy, because a tax policy is really imperative to ensuring that businesses can manage, they can budget, and they can be able to be ensured that if I hire someone today, I'm not going to be in a position of having to have mandates foisted upon me. So I would first want to have a dialogue, but then take that broader principle of starting to have some economic policies that help businesses.
As the only business owner in this entire group, I face that questions every day. And do we hire somebody? Will we have the contract next year? What if